Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Winecast. This is another short cast on a particular variety, and though it is brief, its length isn't for want of love for this grape on my part, as I would probably describe it as my favorite Italian white grape, Fiano. Though Fiano's heritage in relationship to other grapes is still not well understood, what evidence there is seems to indicate that Fiano is a very old variety, whose origins in the Campania region in southern Italy may go back to Roman times or even farther back to when colonists from Greece settled the area. Though it's likely that this grape is old, some claims about its antiquity may be inflated. For instance, it's often confidently identified as the grape behind an ancient Roman wine made in Campania called Appianum, that gets its name from the Latin word for honeybee, supposedly because bees were attracted to the very sweet juice of the grapes this wine was made from. Like I said, you'll hear this claim a lot, but evidence for this connection is pretty hard to come by, and the claim itself seems to be only a few decades old, with sources prior to the 20th century connecting Appianum with Moscato rather than Fiano. And if I had to guess, I'd say that claim is nothing more than a clever bit of marketing designed to get consumers to think that they're just a bottle of Fiano away from reliving a Roman banquet. If it is just marketing, it's been very successful because according to the rules of Fiano's most famous appellation, Fiano di Avellino DOCG, that term, Appianum, may appear on labels for that appellation at the discretion of the producer. While Fiano is probably an old grape, it's definitely a low-yielding grape, a quality that's made it a bit of a labor of love to grow and that caused it to lose ground, literally, to more vigorous varieties during the 20th century when the Italian industry was occasionally more focused on quantity production than quality production. And by the 1980s, there were very few plantings of this grape left anywhere in Italy, including in its homeland, Campania. Fiano's fortunes would begin to change, though, starting slowly in the 1940s and through the 80s, thanks to the efforts of a number of winemakers, none of which was more important than Antonio Mastro Berardino. Mastro Berardino, who was also a key player in helping to revive other local grapes like Greco that had fallen on hard times, began identifying and expanding as many existing plantings of Fiano as he could around the city and province of Avellino in Campania. And his efforts were rewarded with the creation of the Fiano di Avellino DOC in 1978 that was elevated to DOCG status in 2003. Though Fiano di Avellino is the best known and most important of the Italian appellations that use this grape, in terms of both commercial significance and quality, there are well over a dozen DOCs and a number of IGTs in Italy that permit Fiano and occasionally require it as part of their wines. And what are these wines like? Well, generally speaking, Fianos tend to be full-bodied with a rich, oily character, and this particular characteristic shows both on the palate in terms of mouthfeel, but also on the nose, with sheep's wool or lanolin being a descriptor that turns up occasionally. The fruit character of wines made from Fiano is equally rich and complex and typically shows across a spectrum from ripe pear and melon to more tropical notes like pineapple and even mango or papaya. But offsetting these rich fruit notes are more savory ones too, like aromatic green herbs, think basil, as well as nuts like pine nuts or, especially in the case of Fianos from Avellino, hazelnuts. This urban nut quality is consistent enough, again, especially in Fiano di Avellino, that two well-known critics and writers on Italian wine, Joseph Bastianich and David Lynch, went so far as to say that drinking a Fiano can be almost like drinking pesto in a bottle. Well, at least a very complex pesto with a whole host of other fruit and savory notes, but you get the idea. This complex blend of savory and fruity characteristics makes Fiano a great partner for complexly and intensely seasoned dishes and cuisines, and the tropical notes make it especially interesting when paired with Southeast Asian cuisines like Thai and Vietnamese, which are two of my favorite food styles to match it with. All of this sounds amazing, so should you hold on to your Fiano for a while and let it get more complex? Well, the general consensus is that you shouldn't, at least not for too long. If they're going to age, most Fianos will hit their stride between 3 and 5 years, and plenty of them are great to be consumed as soon as they're released. So looking to try some Fiano? Good decision, and the best place to start, hands down, is with Fiano di Avellino from Campania. The rules for this DOCG require that a minimum 85% of what's in the bottle be Fiano, and the slack can be taken up with Coda di Volpe, Greco, or Trebbiano. But many producers forego blending at all and make a 100% varietal wine from Fiano for this appellation, and it's usually worth seeking out such bottlings. As I mentioned before, you may see the term Appianum on some Fiani di Avellino, and while we can debate the historical merits of that term, just be advised that the use of the term, as far as I can tell anyway, is strictly up to the producer, and it does not designate a special style or sub-regional origin for a wine so identified. Avellino is the true heart of Fiano wine, both in terms of sheer volume of production and in terms of critical appraisal. But a couple of other locations where you can find this grape are worth mentioning. First, still in Campania, the Bianco or white wine designation for the Cilento DOC requires a minimum 60 to 65% Fiano in the blend, and a varietal Fiano can also be produced in this DOC requiring a minimum 85% Fiano to receive that designation. Also in Campania, the Sanio DOC can likewise produce a varietal Fiano with a minimum 85%. And a number of Fianos from these DOCs have garnered some positive attention from critics. A bit farther south in Sicily's Menfi DOC, one producer, Planeta, has been getting a lot of buzz for producing varietal Fiano that, despite the DOC regulations that only require 85% of the grape, is usually made with 100% of this variety. Finally, at least as far as Italy goes, you'll find some well-thought-of Fianos coming out of the IGT for Puglia on the eastern coast of the boot. How about outside of Italy? Well, Fiano is not widely planted in Italy to begin with, and plantings abroad are even more sparse. But bottlings in Australia and Argentina are getting some attention, as are occasional bottlings elsewhere. And if you see a Fiano from outside of Italy, and you've had the chance to sample some of the Italian examples, well, it might be worth checking it out. Thanks for joining me for another Winecast. I hope this cast gave you some useful information about Fiano, and especially about Fiano di Avellino. And I hope you'll want to try some Fiano if you haven't already. If this cast was useful as well as enjoyable, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments, especially if you're a Fiano fan as well. Thanks as always for supporting this cast by listening and sharing it across social and other media, and I hope I can connect with you here on YouTube as well as on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm your host, the Unknown Winecaster, and I'm out. Enjoy the grape, but always enjoy it responsibly.